Larry.
Morning, everybody. This is Nagi.
Hi, Nagi. Welcome.
Thank you. I'll just be muted and listening.
Awesome. Well, we're gathering.
Do you want to?
Well, I think probably back somewhere. Do you have a bell or whatnot?
Is this loud enough?
Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Larry, okay.
Chuck Selman.
Chuck.
Julie. Oh, there we go. How are you?
Hi, good. Nice to
Sure.
see you.
How's the hip?
It's brand new. I'm bionic, baby.
Feeling good?
Can you get the bell and ask them and ring them to come in?
Are you feeling good? You look good.
I'm feeling pretty good.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
You're good.
Looking forward to traveling right now with the map lecture.
Tom Bryant. Tom Bryant.
But thanks for picking me out of the crowd.
Mike, are you presenting anything? No? Okay. All right. Come on in, come on in. Well, come on in. Okay. Awesome. Yep. What's yeah. We're sit in the front row.
Why don't we sit, Leonard?
Yeah.
Why don't we sit right here and I'll sit here so I go. Oh, Nikki is here.
He's here.
I'm not very.
We've got one seat open in the front here for. You won't be blocking anything. Awesome, awesome. Making sure there's no one in the kitchen. Okay, Len and Juliet. Awesome. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Delighted to see you all here in person. You couldn't have imagined this 2 years ago.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm really excited to see you all and to spend a little time this morning looking at maps and history and art and things that are meaningful to us with people who are meaningful to us. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to Eleanor for putting up with me and thank you, Len, for being one of the founders of the Bay Area Map Group. Ron, El Presidente of the Map Group, or the California Map Society. I thought maybe we could take just a couple minutes and you can just introduce yourself by name to each other. Want to do that?
And maybe say what your interest in maps are.
Okay. Okay. Start, Tom.
Tom Bryant, and I'm particularly interested in mapping. Seemed appropriate to join the California map.
Okay, Chuck Selman. My interest goes way back to when I was Boy Scout, but currently my interest is mapping for adventure travel.
Cool. My name is Lily Yu and I'm interested in maps all the time. Are we introducing?
Here we are.
I'm Juliet Rothman and I got into maps because of my husband and the editor of Calafia. And I just like strange maps, unusual of any kind.
I'm going to interject for just a second. So Juliet is amazing. She is the editor of Calafia. There are several copies over there on the coffee table. I highly encourage you to look at them. They are beautiful. It really is a wonderful thing that she does, so thank you.
I'm sorry Fred couldn't make it because they like work in tandem.
Fred Desjardins is her
Middle of the night,
partner.
early 20.
The reason this works so well is that we are both totally OCD. And work at the same pace and in the middle of the night and all kinds of strange arrangements that work well.
Thank you. Len? Got you
Okay.
mid-bite.
My name's Leonard. I'm an OBGYN physician, but I've been interested in maps for years. Her mother had inherited a 4 by 6 foot map from the 1700s of the Balkans, and we always had it hanging up, and so I got interested in it. And through most of my career up until 5 years ago, I was collecting Holy Land maps. And anybody who wants to look up Holy Land maps, you can go to Leonard and Juliet Rothman Holy Land maps map sites on search works.
Leonard and Juliet.
Yeah, or whatever.
All right,
At Stanford.
all right.
Also.
You know, you're eating into your time when you're a speaker here.
Was over, so I sold. And I'm going to present a map today.
Thank you. Bill.
I'm Bill Sawyers. I'm a map novice, but I love to learn about all different kinds of maps. And I met Tom in 1982, so a long time ago. So,
We went to Williams College together.
in Massachusetts.
I'm Emily. Lately, I've been really interested in maps featuring a literal red sea. And I also love any map with sea monsters on it. Yeah, maps of art, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love sea. I gave a really cool RKS presentation a while back, and I love that.
I'm Mike Chendry. I like all kinds of maps, and especially what they reflect about the map maker and the perception.
I'm Jane Gibbs. My husband and I collect maps. It started when I gave him some maps for a significant birthday. He's not getting one for this significant. So we've been collecting for 40 years.
Wait, so that significant birthday was his
It's coming up
10th birthday?
Yes.
The first significant birthday that when
2.
on his 20th.
For when he got his first maps.
Yeah.
So I'm Ron Gibbs. We have a focus in the 18th century maps because among my boyhood friends was Benjamin Franklin.
Marcia.
I'm Marcia Lusk, and we're new to this group, but I've always loved maps. I think they're really beautiful. I enjoy maps that show cities changing over time, and also tourist maps with fun little, like, I don't know, little icons about what things are, where things are in a fun place.
Larry Lusk, came with Marcia. I want to thank Tom for helping me get in touch with my interest in it. When I was a kid, we always had that National Geographic US green walls, 6 feet across. So interesting. I look at that all day long and find interesting things and globes. I think never really thought about maps as a discipline until Tommy's emails started coming into my inbox, and I think I have a focused interest, so exploring that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina. I work with Tom on the digital gallery, photographing maps, and yeah, I'm interested in maps of art as well, and just seeing the world from different perspectives.
Thank you.
Ken Habib, I'm the recording secretary of the Map Society, and collector for a long time, maybe 7 or 8 years. Guess I have a bit of a specialty in African maps, but I'm interested in all kinds of maps. I love all kinds of maps. I find something. look at the history and all of that. So, and that just keeps me going. And I'm looking forward to this meeting.
And I'm George Dowdell. I'm a sociologist and I'm interested in crime and neighborhood maps.
Cool. Cool. Great. Thank you all. Eleanor, do you want to introduce yourself?
Just wanna-
Yeah.
The bathroom is right there, the white door, and if that's full, there's a bathroom at the top of the stairs. And I'm currently interested in maps of Rome because I'm going there next month and I'm trying to situate myself and figure it all out, so. Maps of what? Rome. Rome. We're going there next month. Very excited. My city.
We have some folks online, and I know everyone, but if you want to say a word and introduce yourself, you are welcome to. I see Nick Canis. Nick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
You all look great there. Sorry I couldn't be with you. I'm Nick Canis, retired professor of psychiatry at UC, and I collect maps, celestial maps mainly.
Great. Tim?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Tim Weiskell. Like Ken Habib, I have an interest in African maps, and I'm learning from you guys every day. We used to think that California was behind us because you're 3 hours behind us. But I'm finding out you're light years ahead. So I'm trying to catch up with Tom, especially on digital handling of collections.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Michael Bates, I don't think we've met.
No, and hello everybody. I just discovered the Map Society. I'm in Southern California. I attended one meeting in person down here, and then I thought I'd sit in on this one. I've been collecting maps for quite a long time, since studying geography in high school. I've always been interested in maps. I have maps of England and California, and I like collecting maps of towns and cities and seeing how they change over the years. So excited to be here, and I'll be listening.
Awesome. Julie, do you want to say hi?
Yes, hi, I'm Julie Monroe, and I love history and maps. I don't collect them, but I'm really interested in the older ones, and I have a terrible sense of direction. And really don't like MapQuest or Google Maps. I find it, I hate it. I would prefer to go back to the paper. So that's just a little aside. I love that you're part of this and look forward to learning more. Thank you.
Thank you. Nagi, do you want to say hi? Maybe not. Okay. And Augustin is, I think, in Madrid, if I'm right. Are you there, Augustin? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to press on here. So as far as our agenda for the day, I'm going to start. Larry Lusk is going to go second. These are the people I know. And then Chuck Selman, Ken Habib, Ron Gibbs, Len Rothman, and if we have time, Tom Bryant will talk for a bit. And then is there anybody else here that would like to present? Okay, well, if the spirit moves you, you can join. And if we have extra time at the end, I know Tim wanted to say a few words. Hey, Augustin, nice to see you. Do you want to say hello?
Yes, but it is Barcelona, no Madrid.
He's in Barcelona, not Madrid.
Ah, my apologies. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, so I'm going to start off, and we're going to try to keep these to roughly 10 minutes each. And Eleanor, I think you're gonna have a little gong at 8 minutes just to help people out. and hopefully I don't get gonged. So I wanted to show a couple of things. One is just FYI, I'm kind of proud of this because I taught a class at Williams this winter study. It's January. I taught a class to 30 students at Williams College. Oh, now hold on. Now I got to go get the picture of them because it's kind of fun. It really was a good time. And
Winter study is the greatest invention in small frozen winter. Lets people take the class in whatever they want. Doesn't have to have anything major or anything else. So it's just a great invention. And, you know, kudos to Tom and so many of these other people who teach.
I thought about doing it for like 15 years, and then I finally had the time now that our kids are out of the house. And this is my crew here. I need to share. You can see them. So that was a lot of fun. And they all made, we put an exhibit together of maps. There's old maps and new maps. That was their project, was to find one of each. And anyway, it was really fun. And I hope to go back and do it again. My thesis was that old maps have lessons to provide us to new maps and data visualizations, especially about things like what's the question that you're answering, what's the logic that you use, what's the system of collecting the data, how do you estimate and not speculate. Love the old maps because there's so many speculations in them, and today people have to be careful to not speculate. Yes.
I just want to say, if you guys get a chance to go on the digital art gallery, it's really fun to look at maps and cities like 18-year-old, 19-year-old. They got to go to the internet, pick anything they wanted, and that was just super interesting to see where their minds are. When you're bored some Friday afternoon, you can look on that.
It would be nice to be 18 or 19.
Yes, it would.
This is certainly a passion of mine. I'm not a physical map collector. I'm a digital collector. And actually, it's fun because Nick and I were talking about this just last night. The first time I met Nick was the first time that I presented this idea of the digital gallery. And I met Rich Bryman then. And he was like, I need to talk to you. And I shot some of his maps. I've got an exhibit of Len's maps up, Ken's maps, Ron's maps. I love collecting digitally. We've added a lot of new features. I'm not going to bore you with that now, other than there's a mention feature and a like feature. So now you can put a dot on a map and mention someone else, and they can go to the website and they'll get notified. So you can collaborate on a map or a series of maps with another person. So I'm trying to bring this kind of interactivity online.
Who needs Facebook and Twitter?
You're going to compete against Emily's. Is that your employer? Yeah. The other thing that's coming to the digital gallery is prints. So we're soon going to have the ability to buy prints. And so for people who are collectors and have their art shot, not that they're looking necessarily for more income, but it is a way for a collector to, because of course I want the collectors to make some money. If they share their items on the digital gallery, then they'll make some money when we sell pieces. I wanted to also show this book because Mina and I shot this book. It's on the digital gallery. It's beautiful. It's called The Art of the Book. It's Italian from the 1920s. My apologies to the curators of the world, because we do need to take off the binding in order to shoot it efficiently. But it's a beautiful Italian book, and I mean the prints in here are amazing, and it's all on the digital gallery now.
If you want to resurrect that thing, I have a binder that I.
A binder?
put the name on, yes.
I think Nina might be interested in that.
He's working on a medical atlas. Was totally unbound. I'll tell you how it comes out. And, maybe if you could, I'll even show it.
So I'm going to do just one thing now for 5 minutes. I don't know if I'm close to my time. But I'm going to show you while you're all here, and you're going to be able to see it on screen. I'm going to show you the studio I have set up in the garage. So give me just a second. I'm going to see if I can pull this off. Okay, now I'm going to pin this so this works. There we go. Okay. All right, Mina, do you want to come with me? We're gonna go just quickly. I'm gonna show you the studio that's set up downstairs. I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm gonna show you while you're all here what
Webcam.
yeah, the webcam. And Ken's gonna shoot some of his images afterwards. Actually, here, I'm gonna let you. Okay.
Eleanor,
Yeah.
how old is this house?
1886.
Who was it that was at Williams with
Can you guys
Tom?
hear me?
Yeah, Tom. That was me.
Okay. Can you see the equipment?
No, we're,
Okay, awesome. So now I'm gonna walk you through it. So this is the studio. It is very low tech. We've got milk crates holding up a platform. Here's the camera. It's 100 megapixels. That's the fanciest part of the whole thing. Anyway, we put things down on the platform, and I'm going to turn this off. And we shoot them. Everything's connected to the MacBook here by tethering. And we can do, I don't know, 400 images in a setting. This is the MacBook library down here. I can take a question if anybody has one.
Tom, how many maps do you have in a digital gallery now? Would you guess?
About 12,000 images.
So cool.
Oh my. You have temperature control down there.
What's that?
You have temperature control.
It's always cold.
can you absorb into your digital library maps that have already been digitized?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say of the 12,000, 1,000 maybe previously digitized, maybe more. David Rumsey and the Library of Congress are the largest sources.
Right.
And where are you storing and or backing up all of your digital files?
It's on AWS,
Okay.
Amazon Web Services. Yeah. We've accumulated a fair number of items that we've shot and need to be rebound, and not sure what we're going to do with all those.
How many,
What-
how many books are in your library, Tom?
The library has, Eleanor may remember this. I want to say it could be 500 or so, and 450 of them came from the collection of this guy. His name is Rand Burnett, and he was a professor of history at McMurray College, and he was there for 50 years. He passed away during the pandemic. His son put him on Facebook and said, "Does anybody want him?" I said, "Well, I can spend this much," and he said, "Well, great, you got them all." Yeah. All right. I'm delighted to show this to you guys. And if you have images that you want to be shot, that would make me really happy to help someone digitize their collection.
Do you have a map?
I wish I lived on the West Coast. It'd be a little hard to bring them all over land.
Well, funny you should say that. Show him the boxes.
Oh yeah.
These boxes are these boxes travel. I'm actually taking this whole setup to Minnesota on March 24th to shoot some art that my sister Anne has been producing. and we're gonna put it on the gallery. So.
Yeah, that's great.
Tom, Tom,
Yeah.
Are
can
you
hear
coming?
me? This is Nick. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of curious. David's got a collection, Stanford's got a collection, you've got a collection. What are you going to be using your collection for? And do you have any sort of goals of doing something different from these other collections that might make yours more unique?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Look, mine is intended to be a collaborative tool. So I mentioned before, on any of these exhibits, you can put a dot on it anywhere on the image. So the difference what I'm trying to facilitate is online collaboration between people who are interested. Rich Bryman has a series of vignette maps on them. I've been dying to understand what the meaning is of some of these maps, the Wandering of Paul, and there's some guy being stoned on it. Like, I want to know about that without necessarily having to find the curator of it. Maybe the curator could collaborate with us on that map. So,
Well, that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to teach students to do. And I'm glad you're teaching the course at Williams, because as you know, I taught there before you were an undergraduate, actually. I used to teach African history at Williams from 1976 to 78. And that's where I started digitizing things with my snapshot camera at the time. There wasn't even digital. It was just taking pictures on a tripod and making them into slides. But in any case, the teaching component of it, I think is absolutely crucial. And that's where I think you have really some innovative step up on this. I mean, heads up in the sense that you're ahead of the rest of us, even those of us who've been teaching for 50 years, because you recognize that it's not ownership that's involved here, it's access. And access is crucial through the net. I mean, what you've done is basically hijack the net for the purposes of education.
I don't know about that. Look, I mean, it really is one person at a time who's interested in a subject and working with them. And I used it for my class, but I mean, I mean it when I say, like, if you are interested in collaborating on something, I want to do it. I want to try to be a facilitator, whether it's your group collaborating with itself or me collaborating with you. But I just, it's just really exciting to learn about imagery. That's
or collaborating through a college like the Chapin Library at Williams College. I mean, that would be a really powerful way to go.
All right, Eleanor, you must have rung the bell by now. So we're going to come upstairs and move on with the program. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome.
Next, I'm going to cover this up. Do a little old school, non-digital presentation. People see that map okay?
Hello from Miami.
Sorry, did I jump the gun?
No, that's all right.
So,
Hi, Dorothy. How are you?
Hello. Hi there, Nick.
yeah, hi, I'm
Hello,
Larry.
everyone.
Oh, can you spell it for her, please? She's our editor.
Larry, L-U-S-K. Okay, and
Sorry.
I'm a neighbor. So this is a map of Fire Island, New York. Now, we're not on the East Coast, so do people know Fire Island? Have you heard of Fire Island?
Very well.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So this is the western tip here, and Fire Island runs another 6 miles off the map. As Tom pointed out, this is kind of a hard island to take a map of because it's so long and skinny. It goes another 6 miles east. Up here we have the body of Long Island, and Fire Island is about 50 miles from New York City. There is a series of barrier beaches that run along the south shore of Long Island. Far Rockaway, where my mom grew up, is in New York City. It's actually a peninsula, but looks like a barrier beach. Next up is Long Beach. After that, Jones Beach, and then we get into Fire Island and then run out to the Hamptons. So there are a lot of interesting things about Fire Island. Oh, and I should have said this is a NOAA map from 2003, a reproduction. And a lot of interesting things about Fire Island, so I just want to quickly share.
Tell us what NOAA is.
Yeah, it's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Right. A lot of interesting things about Fire Island. I just want to briefly share a little bit about the place, the geography, geology, some history, some personal history, and a little bit about the culture. So one of the things you can see here is that Fire Island forms the Great South Bay, and it forms a very important function to hold back the ocean and create this bay, which protects all these communities on the South Shore. One of the interesting things about the Great South Bay is it's 6 miles across, but in many places, I don't know if you can see unless you're sitting in the front, the depth markers show 1, 2, 3. So very shallow. So we've always said you can almost walk across the bay 6 miles if you kind of pick your route from Fire Island back to the mainland. Another interesting thing about Fire Island, as you can clearly see, is it's very narrow, 30 miles long, widest spots only about half a mile. Many places are only maybe even a quarter of a mile or less in width. Geology of Fire Island, it's thought that the South Shore barrier beaches formed after the last, or as part of the last ice age, when there was sand accumulation from glacial outwash. History of Fire Island is also pretty interesting. In pre-colonial days, the Native Americans used it for hunting and also for fishing. In the colonial days, starting in the 1600s, this became a very active offshore whaling spot, not whaling in the South Seas, but whaling and rowing your boat out and catching whales. And we still see whales offshore. By the early 1800s, many people know that the whales had been hunted and you needed to start to have to go very far to catch a whale. So this whaling industry kind of disappeared. Also in colonial days, a big industry on the bay and at Fire Island was called salt hay harvesting. Have you ever heard of that? No. I'd never heard of that until I came across this. It's salt meadow cordgrass can be cut from the salt water and used for animal feed and animal bedding. And that was a big industry, as well as waterfowl hunting and shellfishing. In 1826, we got a lighthouse. I can find it, Fire Island Light, right here. And it was relatively small. In 1858, they built a higher one that you can still see. And it was actually at that time, this was the western tip of Fire Island. Right here, the inlet was right here. And it was said that the packet boat could sail by the inlet and throw the newspaper up onto the lighthouse keeper's porch. Since that time, there's been a lot of continuous western migration of sand. So we have another 5 miles to add it onto the western tip, which I always think is kind of amazing, but very active beaches. And the lighthouse was the first place that many people would see when they're coming to the US for the first time. In the late 1800s, people started to vacation in the country and there started to be some accommodations for summer guests. 1920 to 1933, prohibition and rum running became a big industry on Fire Island. Boats would dock offshore, booze would be taken to the beach. They were said to be little railroads to take it across, and then fast boats would take it into the mainland. And when I was a kid, some of those old fast boats were used as ferries, and it was rumored they had machine gun bullets holes in the hull from their altercations with the Coast Guard. And in fact, here there's West Fire Island, East Fire Island. West Fire Island has a few homes. East Fire Island is very unoccupied. It's barely above sea level, very marshy and mosquito laden. But there's a little dot here. And if you go out there, you can find the ruins of an old speakeasy that was a pretty popular spot during Prohibition, and some confirmation of that is, can you see the white here? This is all dredged, and if you're close, you can see it's deeper, and there's a little spur of the channel here that goes right to the tip. So I think that's some confirmation that people were going there during those days. The 30s, depression hit Fire Island pretty hard, not a lot of activity. 1938, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the hurricane of 38. Meteorologists say it's the worst hurricane to have hit New England since possibly the 1600s, when nobody was measuring things. It was called the Great New England Hurricane, or the Long Island Express. It hit Fire Island very hard in this nice developed community that's off there. It loaded a lot of houses off into the bay. You can see pictures of houses just bobbing around in the bay after the hurricane. In the 1950s, Fire Island became a popular bohemian summer destination. In 1956, my parents, Ruth and George Lusk, looked at the New York Times, saw a listing for a summer rental in Lonelyville, and that's how we started at Fire Island in my family. And when I first went there, Lonelyville, which doesn't really show up on the map, which is probably appropriate for a town called Lonelyville, right? It was just that little string of a very splintery boardwalk from ocean to bay with about a dozen houses. In the 60s, more and more interesting people started coming into Lonelyville. My friend Jonathan Friedan's mom wrote a book. Her name was Betty, and she wrote an important book called The Feminine Mystique. And I later went, oh, Jonathan's mom, she was well known. That was in the 60s, and there were still some very interesting and kind old timers. And they hung on as the new people came in. Doc Telson, who was a retired orthopedist, had a duck hunting shack in the dunes and no running water, I found out when I was over there and needed to go outside. And he had a pump, and a lot of people had pumps to access water in those days. And in later days, Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft lived in Lonelyville and took the ferry back and forth with everyone else, and were very chill. In 1962, Robert Moses, New York's master builder, people know about Robert Moses. He wanted to pave everything. He had this 30-year plan underway to put a 4-lane highway down Fire Island as like a traffic spur, because if you've ever been on Long Island, you know, Long Island Expressway, east-west, clogs, the Great Southern Parkway clogs, and there is a ton of traffic. This was not well received. The proposal was stopped, but there is a bridge that was to be the feeder, and this bridge comes from the mainland with good highway connections, and then crosses Taptree, which is part of Jones Beach geographically, and ends up here in what's now called Robert Moses State Park. And it dead ends here. You can't take a car off here to go to the rest of the island, but this resulted in a very good thing too. Fire Island National Seashore, just like Point Reyes National Seashore, was established to protect the island from future development. And so today there are 17 very distinct and diverse communities within the Fire Island National Seashore. And you know, the interesting thing about Fire Island, probably one of the most unique things, is no cars are allowed on the island except for the park here. And there's a corresponding park at Smith Point with a little bridge on the other end. So everybody pretty much comes by ferry. The communities are very distinct, and in between the communities is just a sort of a Burma road through the dunes, which is sandy and hard to walk on. So each community is actually somewhat isolated, or in many places at least they're spaced out. So they can be quite different. Again, no cars, just bikes and Fire Island 1-minute wagons, very popular. 4,500 homes in the summer, but only 300 year-round residents. In Ocean Beach, down here, the biggest town, there's a year-round school. And some other interesting communities. Dunewood, where we live, was developed in the late 50s, early 60s on a marshy area with a bunch of mid-century modern homes. Fair Harbor, here where we go shopping, has a grocery store, a wine shop, general store, and it has Tina Fey. Cherry Grove is probably one of the most famous communities on Fire Island. It is a gay, lesbian, LGBT community starting in the 40s and 50s, and still has its identity. Point of Woods, right here, started as a Chautauqua colony in 1894, which was a very inclusive concept. I don't know if you're familiar with the Chautauqua concept, but a wonderful concept. Well, it has morphed into a very exclusive sort of Fire Island version of a gated private community where minorities have traditionally not been welcome. So just a few things about Fire Island. Fire Island is threatened by erosion. It's threatened by dune degradation. It's threatened by rising sea levels. And but I'm very hopeful it'll be there for future generations to enjoy. Thanks for your attention.
Harry, what's the derivation of the name of fire?
Oh, that is such a great question. The most convincing history I've heard is that in Dutch, there were like 4 islands. And so in Dutch, it was like vier, which I speak Danish, vier is 4. So I think it got sort of carried over to English 4 islands. That's the best. Also, people lit fires to warm ships. So it's a whole subject of debate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck?
Okay,
you're next.
thank you. And I could use your help.
Yeah, yeah,
A little
yeah.
digital work.
Yeah.
And for our recording secretary, Chuck, official name is Charles. My wife's name is Selman, S-E as in Sierra, E-L-L-M-A. You're welcome. So, when Tom said they were giving presentations, I thought, I'll just bring a map. I didn't realize that it is more sophisticated than that. But so what I thought I'd do for you all today is just give you a brief kind of trajectory of how maps have impacted me through my life. And as I said in the introduction, I started out really at the beginning. I was a Boy Scout and learned orienteering and learned how to read topographic maps. And that's what really started or kindled the interest. And when I was in the 10th grade, I went to a new school and had an English professor who gave us Samuel Coleridge's Kubla Khan to read. And I don't know if you're familiar with Samuel Coleridge or Kubla Khan, but it was really an opium-induced dream that made him write this crazy poem about this mystical landscape where Alf, the sacred river, ran to this underground sea, and there was fortresses. And so the first assignment in my first class in this new high school was to make a map. And so I said, well, I know topo maps. So I started, okay, this river, underground sea. Needless to say, I was the only kid in the class who made a topographic map of a Samuel Coleridge poem. And I've been going through my parents' estate, and I'm sure that that map is in there because my mom was a great archivist. And if you do, it's going to go to your library and you're going to scan it. Right? I think I only got a B on it. I don't think that the professor really understood topo maps. But fast forward a little bit, and after I graduated from college, I ended up flying for the US Navy. And I flew P-3 Orions, which are anti-submarine warfare aircraft. Very analog. You would think that the Navy would have state-of-the-art system. We still use paper maps. And so we use all variety of paper maps to navigate the oceans, stay away from islands. And the one thing that happened there, which the map actually got us into trouble and then it saved us, was we were in the Mediterranean. This was 1991. Our mission was to keep track of every Soviet submarine every day of the year, everywhere in the world. So we were part of that big system. And my navigator, was put in all of the waypoints where we needed to fly on our mission based on a paper map. And in the fold of the map was the latitude line, and he misinterpreted 34 for 35. So we were 60 miles off where we were supposed to be. And we discovered this when a Tunisian F-5 fighter pulled up on our wing. That's not supposed to happen. So the map got us in trouble, but it also saved us because we were called up to Naples to the admiral of the fleet, the US fleet that operates in the Mediterranean. He was not happy. And the map was part of, I would say, the evidence that we showed. And I think, yeah, the fold, I think it was the fold and the fact that on that mission, not only did we get intercepted by the Tunisian Air Force, but we were on top of 3 Soviet submarines in one day, which was kind of a record at that time in that area. So we had that going for us. So fast forward yet again, and this is where I'll spend the rest of my little presentation, is that about 7 or 8 years ago, a group of, I was introduced to this group of guys that are down in Southern California, and they do these really crazy self-guided adventure trips, and they like to go to the Arctic. So they go to Arctic Alaska, Arctic Canada, and they do these self-guided river trips. So they invited me along. The first time I went, I was really disappointed with their maps. They were just photocopies of photocopies, right? With a little pin. I was like, this could be a lot better. And that was kind of launched me into digital mapping. And I discovered the tools that were available. And it became not only a useful tool, but almost an art form. I really enjoyed putting these things together. And I can show you some of the tools I use online, but what I thought I'd do is that you were talking about printing. There's the main online tool that I use is called CalTopo. And it was started by a search and rescue volunteer up in Truckee. And he came to the conclusion that the online mapping resources were really subpar for search and rescue. So he started to build this system. Today, I think he has 5 or 6 employees. You can overlay all kinds of data over all kinds of different base maps. But the beautiful part is that you can print, and it will generate a 3-foot by 4-foot maximum, at least for my subscription level, PDF, which then you can send off to get printed. And these are river trips, so you really wanted waterproof maps. So I found a little outfit outside of Salt Lake City that makes high-end GPS survey equipment, but also as a side business, they sell waterproof paper. And upon calling them, they said, oh yeah, we have huge rolls of this stuff. We will print here, and we love topo maps. So send us your file and we'll print it. So I brought an example of that. And this was generated on CalTopo. And it's 3 feet by 4 feet. And I don't know for our online audience where I should put this, but are they looking at that? Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
So this is what it looks like. And it's a combination of, thank you very much. So it's a combination of various topographic information, shading, and then I've overlaid our route down this river. And it might be hard to see, but there are little blue flags, and those indicate confluences where either other rivers or streams are coming in. There's also, it's very small, but you can turn this all into satellite imagery and take a look at the most recent imagery. And sometimes it's really difficult to find a place where you can pull out and set up camp. So spend time going down the whole route, identifying locations which are good pullouts, good campsites, and come up with this map. So we started here, and our takeout where we got picked up by the float plane is here. And I don't know, I think you were asking earlier, has it ever saved anybody's life? Yeah. And I can't say that it has, but it's certainly made life easier, and it's interesting to see where we are. Last summer, I did not go on the trip, and at about 8 in the evening, I got a text message from the satellite communicator of the guy who was up on the trip, who's my friend, and they were in a pretty, I wouldn't say dangerous, because they're armed to the teeth. They're former sheriff deputies and firefighters and paramedics, but they had 3 male grizzly bears who were really hungry that had come down the river or come down the stream and were really aggressive. And they were holding them off just by kind of firing warning shots in front of them. Long story short, he says, we don't have time to look at the map. Can you tell us how far down the river we have? Because it was 10 at night, even still light out because it's summertime. But I had the digital version of this on my computer, so I could immediately take a look. Okay, here they are. I know exactly where they are because the text message has their latitude and longitude. And say, okay, if you go down 1.5 miles, river right, right around this bend, you should be good. You'd probably be far, the bears won't follow you there. So I don't think it saved their lives, but it made their life easier. So, and yeah, that's kind of my trajectory, the trajectory of maps throughout my life. And then when I discovered that there was this society, and Tom was like, wow, this is great. So a pleasure to be here and share a little bit with you. And I can pass this around if you want to take a closer look.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I would call that in the parent 3-dimensional map.
Right, it looks three.
It's an apparent three-dimensional map. It's really a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I think you need.
I can show you the online tool. I think it'll take too long, but the CalTopo is really neat. This is up-to-date topographic information, but one can go back and put a base layer in from the 1940s, the 1920s. There's all sorts of historical data, and it keeps growing and growing. And this summer, my brother went on a backpacking trip with his daughter, and they were up in the Sierras, and there were fires, and he was always curious of where the fires were. And so real-time fire data could be overlaid. And so I could see where the fires were. And now you can see where aircraft are. So in a search and rescue situation, you can see, oh, well, these people are there. Southwest 357 is, going to be overhead. If you really needed to, or the search and rescue people can do this, they get a hold of ATC, they tell the pilots to monitor a guard frequency, and it's just an amazing amount of data and information.
Have you done any others of these unique ones you just described?
I have about 6 or 7 of these.
Those,
Yeah.
but not
All for
these new-
sale.
not these new things with the fires and stuff.
Oh, those I just have digitally online, but maybe in the future I can just do a digital only presentation and show you kind of all the tools.
Chuck, what's the resolution of that document? Like how many pixels? Is it?
Oh, I think I had this as 400 DPI. Yeah, they're pretty big PDF files. And but I send them off to this little shop in Salt Lake City.
How big is that 400 DPI? Like, is that
20, 30 gigs, something like that.
gigabytes?
Megabytes.
Megabytes.
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
not megabytes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
anybody else see a face that's on the left-hand side? of the-
Yeah.
Right here.
That's
Hey, here. Hold this up a little. and
Thank you.
pass it, maybe.
Thank you.
This is the Kelly River in Arctic Alaska. It's towards the west coast, right?
Oh.
Yeah, in the Brooks Mountain Range.
Where's the closest?
The main town up there is a place called Kotzebue, which is named after a Russian admiral who surveyed that area originally. And Kotzebue has roads in it, but there are no roads leading to it. So you can only get there by air or sea.
Okay.
And it's kind of the hub for all of the native peoples up there.
Okay.
And so that's really the only town. There's tiny villages scattered throughout that area of the Arctic, but that's the only real town.
Wow. All right.
Yes,
Can you tell me your first name again?
Chuck.
Chuck. So Chuck, just to go back to the beginning in a way, you said you didn't want to fly over islands. Why not fly over islands?
Oh, in the P3, it was
Yes.
really about avoiding islands, running into them at night.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not that, not necessarily flying over them, but I
And
misspoke.
then also you mentioned that you were when you went off course, you ended up over 3 Russian subs.
Mhm.
So that was just accidental?
No, we knew they were there, but tracking them down is the hard part.
What branch of the service?
Navy.
Navy.
This was right when the Cold War was coming to an end and the Berlin Wall had come down. And so we weren't really, it wasn't as adversarial as it was. It was actually quite interesting in that, the P3 drops, its main way of detecting submarines, now it's really getting off mapping, is to drop sonar buoys, listening devices in the water. And if the submarine was on the surface, which sometimes they were, especially the diesel electrics, their protocol was American P3 drop sonar buoy, we pick up sonar buoy, send it back to our lab in Moscow, see if they're up to anything new, right? We did drop our one buoy out there, and we decided, you know what, this is all coming to an end. So we took a canister, which the sonar buoys are in, they're about this big around, about 3 or 4 feet long, and stuffed it filled with whatever we could find on the plane, from newspapers, magazines, squadron patches, Snickers bars, whatever we had, duct taped the thing, dumped it out with the sonar buoy. They, of course, altered course, picked up the buoy, and there's 2 sailors on deck, and they picked this thing up, and they're waving, and we're wind rocking. At that point, I knew the Cold War and the Soviet Union was over. For a while, right now, that was back in the 90s. Anyway, you can pass that around, and thank you very much.
Tom, we just saw the speaker on one of the cameras and we could see the speaker's back, but we couldn't
That's right
see the
here.
map. no, when you were moving to the right, could
Yeah,
you
would you
have
like
the
to see the
cameras
map?
or have the speakers show us the maps? Maybe the one behind the screen
Yeah.
or over to the right a little bit?
So this camera right here,
Or this one here, maybe this is.
so that way I can see as well.
Oh, yeah.
Can't see.
It's the camera right over there.
Yeah, no, so I'm looking at on the screen.
Oh,
so I
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm running into anybody, but that's,
Okay, great.
how's that?
That's fine, yeah. But it might be easier when when the speakers present, if they just move 2 steps to the right. Because we
I
can
have to-
see on that camera, I can see your head right now, Tom. That's a good spot.
Okay,
I think you need to talk to the camera guy.
all right.
That's the good spot.
Yeah, this is the spot.
From
Okay.
now on, you get the spot.
All right, Ken, you're
Thank
up. Yeah.
It's a long time.
At least one.
Right. Yes, while we're waiting. Hello.
Chuck.
It's his
You know
name,
what's
Chuck.
interesting? Matt, I'm sure you know this.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, there were a number of naval solutions in the Far East.
Yes.
Admiral of the PAC fleet.
Yeah.
Come on over here and I'll help you.
Decided that the
Tell you what I'm gonna do. I'll hold it for a second and then I'll show it to the people online.
paper and to map their routes and pencil on the maps.
Well, I'll have to share my story with you.
For those of you online, trying to share the map with you.
No, I can't.
We'll talk. Okay, all right. Do you want me to, is this okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Take it away.
Okay, so Juliet knows who I am, but Ken Habib, Habeeb. And this is, I like to, just a little history about obtaining this little map. It's a Dutch map. It's by Johan Blauw. And I wandered into an estate sale one day, not too long ago, last year, toward either the end of 2020 or the beginning, or rather end of 2021 and beginning of 2022. And I don't see this very often because people don't know about these maps or they can't afford them or whatever, but I walked in one bedroom and there were 2 maps on the walls. This was one. And then there was a larger map of Africa, which made my eyes go like this because I collect African maps. And it's it was a fairly scarce English map of Africa. And I had to resist the temptation to close the door and hug them and hide them somewhere, but it turns out that somebody had gotten and seen them first and put in offers. So then I had to put in an offer and wait till Sunday to make sure, see if my offer was high enough or not. And it was kind of like this stressful, but at any rate, I ended up getting both. And I didn't bring the African map, but it's actually online in Tom's gallery. So you can see actually almost all of my African maps online. So this map here is actually a county map of the English county of Wiltshire. The map is called Wiltonia. And it's, as I said, by Johan Blauw, who's the son of Willem Blauw. They were very famous Dutch cartographers, among the most famous Dutch cartographers. And Johan is most famous for a very ambitious undertaking in which he came up with a multi-volume atlas, large atlas, and which, if you tried to buy it today, it would set you back 175,000, maybe probably more actually now. And it included, all kinds of countries and counties inside the countries. This map wasn't actually in that map, in that atlas, but it was in a previous atlas called Atlas Nova. Atlas Novus. And he, Johan, decided to, for whatever reason, he decided to publish all of the county maps of England. Now, it had been done before by a guy by the name of John Speed. John Speed is one of the most famous English cartographers. And he came first. So John Speed created his county atlas in 1611. And Johan decided to go back and do it again in 1646. The two maps are different. I can pass around this paper. I don't have Speed's map. I would love to someday. Perhaps I'll be able to acquire it for comparison. But there's some big differences and some not so big differences. For example, this on the left side rather of the map was the coat of arms taken right off of Speed's original map. And this in Wiltshire County, by the way, is famous for a couple things, but the thing it's mostly famous for is Stonehenge. So Stonehenge is in Wiltshire County. And just I don't know if you can see this, but this is John Speed's map. If the camera can see that. This is Stonehenge. So he placed he drew or had his engraver, who was another famous cartographer, Dutch cartographer, by the way, engraved this and put prominently Stonehenge in the upper left corner, upper right corner. I see that. This and the story on this one, when by the time Johan came to draw up his own map, I'll just read you. I don't want to get too much into the history of it, but I'll just read this paragraph. It says, when Blau's Atlas of England, the fourth volume of the Atlas Novus, was published, its subject was in the grip of the English Civil War, which was started in 1642. In the early years of the war, the Dutch were split in their support of England. Dynastic connections tended towards Orangist support of Charles Charles, the House of Stuart, while the mercantile elites of Holland tended to support the parliamentarians. And don't worry about the explanation too much, just one side versus the other, basically. The content of the map, dating from Speed's map of the county, does not reflect the current battles. This is sort of the political history of it. The martial figures decorating the map's cartouche and scales, however, wear the distinctive garb of the royalist cavaliers, in spite of Wiltshire having been at the time mainly a parliamentarian stronghold. Moreover, the upper right is embellished with the coat of arms of Charles I. Thus, the decor of the map reflects less the situation on the ground and more Blau's attitude towards it or the perception of his patrons. So there's some political thing going on here. The Dutch had an interest, and they happened to be on the side of the royalists. And just to show you what they think of what the Dutch thought of Stonehenge, that's Stonehenge right there. It's a little bit less impressed than the English were. They're a little less proud of, there's no pride involved here. So I believe it's originally hand colored by someone. This is a 17th century map, mid 17th century, 1646 or so, probably hand colored at the time, and it's in really good condition.
How many do we have an idea of how many maps of this, how many copies are out of this? How many?
No, I don't. I don't know how many copies he made of it.
Incredible.
Yeah, there's probably perhaps 500.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Right.
And did you say it was part of a bound atlas?
Part of a bound atlas of all of the counties of England.
And you say his patrons were royalists. Was it made as a commercial enterprise, or because somebody, ask him to make it, or what?
This is a copy of Speed's map.
No, that's Blau's, that's
Blau
Johann
is the
Blau's,
initial one.
that's Johann Blau's map, yeah.
Why did he decide to make this happen?
That was just a commercial venture on his part. He probably thought that there was a market for English county maps. It's Speed's map, of course, 1611, so, 40 years, almost 40 years earlier. And at that time, maybe there weren't too many Speed atlases available. And so he decided to do his own atlas, the Atlas Novus, which all the counties, and he probably did fairly well, selling
This
them.
is dated 1645,
1646.
but Speed's was 1611.
That's right.
So this is a copy of Speed's.
Oh, I see what in a way, it's a copy, not quite a copy. If you take a look at this, I'll pass this around. You can take a look at this, how different it is from Speed. There's more differences than there are similarities.
Ken, have you been able to compare your copy to another copy of the same map, and were there variations in the coloring?
There are, yes, I have. I've seen it in black and white. And by the way, there are collectors who only collect black and white because that's the way they were originally published very often. And then people would ask for it to be colorized. So I've seen it in black and white. I've seen it in different contemporary color. I've seen it where this is a pretty good crisp image. I've seen images that were not as crisp. Yeah, if you go online and type in Wiltonia, the name of it, you'll see, like in Pinterest, has probably 10 different colorized versions of it, or versions of it.
Different variations.
Yeah,
Colors.
right.
Have you seen
Exactly.
other counties from the same atlas?
Yes.
Yeah. Same detail, similar. look?
Same detail, different look. This cartouche here is, of course, special to this particular map. The coats of arms are reflecting the baronies in the county, and so each county is going to have its own variations. There, by the way, there are parks, and I didn't research these too carefully, but it's kind of a work in progress. But there are areas like forested areas here that are mentioned, and this is sort of an interesting county because not just Stonehenge, but there are other, from what I've read in the past, there are other how would I say that, pagan
megalithic structures
from earlier in the prehistory, pre the date time of Christ. There were places that they would gather. So on a yearly basis, sometimes on a 10-yearly basis, they went by some kind of anniversary system, which is not fully understood at this time, but peoples would come from all over the kingdom, meaning most half of England, and converge on either Stonehenge or one of these other areas, and have a big bacchanal party and then disperse. It was, it's kind of a funny thing. A weekend party basically, and then leave.
Yeah, we should probably wrap.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You need a warning.
Sorry. All right, our next speaker is El Presidente. Ron Gibbs.
Can you tell us in the meantime what this is all about?
Eleanor, the question is about the tablecloth hanging over the sideboard. What is that of? Where did you get that? Ben is covetous. He wants to make a tie out of it.
A lot of ties on.
You want to put it up there? Yes. Yep. I have an idea. I'm going to take a picture of that with my iPhone and send it to the chat.
Good idea.
And where shall I send? You're over there. Okay, front of the chair, Ron.
A great idea, Tom. Get the
Well,
author.
good.
I'm gonna do the other ones too, guys. All right.
Good
Oh, that's
morning.
great.
This is a map of the greatest city in North America 250 years ago. So this is this is
These
my
are
hometown.
the Mounds people.
Yep. And what you are looking at is a pirated 1777 map. So the original map was done by William Faden, who I've talked about and shown many of his other maps. He was cartographer to the king and did many maps of 18th century of the world. And this was before copyright. So this map was done by a famous German cartography family, the Lotters, and this is by Matthew Albert Lotter. And within months after William Faden's map, which you can look up on the Library of Congress, Lotter decided, Philadelphia is probably important interest to people in Europe also. So I'm going to pirate his map. And the maps look very much the same, except for some reason, the Lotters like this nausea green color. And that was a signature of their maps. But otherwise, it looks very much the same. 1777, Matthew Lotter, Philadelphia and environs. And even though it's German, the print is all in English. And it has almost everything except Faden in the lower right corner had a scale of miles. So I'm going to say a little bit about Philadelphia history and then a little about my own personal history here in Philadelphia. So you're welcome. I hope we have time afterwards. And so number one here was about the Lotters. Number two is that Philadelphia was founded in the 1680s by William Penn. He had a royal charter for the colony of Pennsylvania, Penn's Woods. And Philadelphia was laid out in an extraordinarily obsessive grid, very different from European cities. And the downtown part of Philadelphia is exactly like this. The streets going between the Delaware River and the Schuylkill River are numbered, and the streets going north, running parallel north and west, are named after trees. So it's a very orderly way to get you around. And although we've moved many times, this is the only city I can find my way around. I'm hopeless in San Francisco.
I just had a thought that I've never had before. Pennsylvania. Silva is the Latin word for woods.
Penn's Woods,
Penn is woods, and then the streets are.
named after trees.
I never thought about it.
Here we go. How beautiful it is.
No,
So,
I like it.
so in 1776, 1777, Philadelphia has the dark pink, and the lighter shaded pink is the plan for the expansion of Philadelphia West. Largest city in British North America, 30,000. New York's got 20,000. Boston up there, we got 10,000. And Charleston, South Carolina is 10,000. So population of the colonies, about 3 million. Almost everybody lives in villages and farms. So the next point is, that's number 2. Where's number 3? Oh, 3. At the bottom, this is an elevation of the Pennsylvania State Legislature, completed in 1753, the most elegant building in the New World. In 1774, when the First Continental Congress met, they met here
at the Pennsylvania State House. And then they met again in 75, 76. The Declaration of Independence was signed here, the Pennsylvania Legislature State House. And subsequently, this has become known as Independence Hall. And they were very proud of it and showed it that. That's number 3. Now, number 4. So what was happening in Philadelphia in 1777? Well, the previous year, the British had invaded New York. George Washington suffered a series of very ignominious defeats. And in the winter, the British spent the winter of 76, 77 in New York. George Washington was up in Morristown, New Jersey, trying to figure out what the British were going to do. And the British decided in 1777, one of their armies was going to capture Philadelphia. The British generals had an old style look, and they said, if we capture the American capital, it will take the heart out of the American Revolution and they'll give up. Not true, but the British did have a plan to capture Philadelphia. And on the map, you can see some of the American defenses. So there's a fort here on Mud Island. It's something called the Chevaux de Frise. Chevaux de Frise was a defense against shipping. It was tree trunks pointed, wrapped with metal around the points, and then dug into a box of stones to attempt to prevent ships from coming up. So these are the defenses, some of the defenses that were ultimately built to prevent the British from coming up. The British did capture Philadelphia relatively easily in September 1777. So it's 4 and 5. And then now, if you look at a map of modern day Philadelphia, it's going to look incredibly the same. So this is, as we would say in Philadelphia, Lancaster Avenue. I guess the English would say Lancaster. Lancaster Avenue is right over here. This is the road to Haverford. There's Haverford Avenue running all the way through the Philadelphia suburbs, and the roads are basically superimposable upon that, so that's very familiar. Number 8 is the Marion Meeting House. There's a very fashionable suburb called Marion in Pennsylvania. The Marion Meeting House goes across, and US 1 would run right basically through here. Now, 9 and 10, I wanted to show you. 10 is the Wissahickon Creek. Wissahickon Creek runs into the Schuylkill River, which joins the Delaware River. Wissahickon Creek was the main source of entertainment for Jane and me when we were first married 56 years ago. We were living on a school teacher's salary of about $5,000 a year, and our great entertainment was to go walking along Wissahickon Creek, and it was free.
Jane, is that true? You liked it as much as he did?
Oh, wow.
So it's a beautiful valley running through here and lovely. Now, number 9, I want to point out, as you might be able to see when you get closer, there are the names of very famous families and mansions in the suburbs. Well, number 9 is E. George and D. George. And I didn't know the origin of them except in high school. George's Hill was a very important place to go parking at the end of the day. And I didn't know that when I was there, it was named after famous 18th century Philadelphians. But this is a map of my hometown. There's a little bit of Philadelphia history and a little First Earth history. Thank you.
The map was made by an American?
No, this one, the original map was William Faden, British.
Yeah.
The cartographer to the king, and this was very quickly pirated by the Lauder family and sold
German.
German and sold German. So these the Faden map today is probably 3 times the market value of.
Is this in German or English?
This is in English. So they were.
But they were German, Lauders were German.
The Lauders were Germans.
Right.
Where are the mainline towns and why is it called the main line?
Oh, yeah, okay. So the main line, thank you, was a commuter railroad. And 30th Street Station would be right here. There was another around 12th Street, the numbers went west in order. There was the Reading Terminal, and all of the businessmen would come by train, and the main line ran basically, George, you would know, basically this way into 30th Street or 12th Street.
What's the furthest point on the main line? I can't remember.
Oh, maybe towns that you would know because of famous colleges there, like Villanova, NCAA. Connect. Oh, great. Was Villanova the end of the main? St. David's, Berwyn, yeah, they were all out over here. Yeah. Great. George, where did you live?
I lived a block south of Independence Hall.
Okay, so the Independence Hall would be at about 3rd or 4th Street and Chestnut. So here's Mark, George. Oh yeah, I can see it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do any of the travel routes follow original Indian trails? In that area?
I don't know how they got started, but by 1777, there were farming communities. I think Lancaster might have, I'm sure Lancaster, an Amish community. I don't know if there was Amish then, but that would have been like the county seat for a farming area. And they would have roads that would bring the produce and goods into the city.
And that was that a former Algonquin territory, do you know?
Ken, I don't know.
Very cool.
Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. Len? F-A-D-N. Len Rothman, you're up. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yes. All right. How do you want to put that?
Well, let me take a picture of it, put it down, and I'll take a picture of it real quick here. Just put it down. Let me give it back to you.
Then you can lighten it up as much as you want.
Hold it, and if you want to put it up there, you can.
Yeah. I want to hold it. All right. So let me just say a few words before we get into this particular map. For years, I collected Holy Land maps, and when I first stopped collecting them, I lost some interest because the hunt was over, and I ended up selling them. But you can see them all in SearchWorks Stanford. Basically, I've gotten very interested in 3-dimensional maps. Your typical flat map is 2-dimensional. Chuck's map is an apparent 3-dimensional, beautiful job. and then there are three-dimensional maps. Okay, which I have a significant collection. One day, about a year and a half ago, Juliet got some information somewhere about a three-dimensional map that was for sale. And she mentioned it to me sort of offhandedly, but kept it in my head. And as soon as I got out of her sight, I looked it up and I ended up buying it. Okay. Three-dimensional maps are not anything new. Neolithic times, there were three-dimensional house plans, basement plans, things like that. It's all been recorded very beautifully in the history of cartography books, which I have referenced. Interestingly, there's not much about three-dimensional maps in US maps. Besides this being a three-dimensional map, it's by a German cartographer named Joseph Schedler. Joseph Schedler is not much is known about Joseph Schedler, which I'll show you how not much is known. But he was a very good cartographer, historian, teacher, engineer. He emigrated to the United States around 1850. He opened a shop in New York City and a branch in Jersey City. He had a partner for a while, and he specialized actually in globes. But he also did many maps, and he made three-dimensional maps. And the way he did it, he never described it that I can find, but I found another famous American educator from 1880 who described how they do these things. And basically they would make a plate of plaster of Paris, and once it hardens, and if it's about a half an inch to an inch thick, they would carve out all the mountains and hills, etc., in that plate. And then after they carved it out, they would coat the holes in the surface with a type of varnish, and then they pour plaster in it again, and it becomes, and when that would harden, the negative now becomes a positive. As they lift that plate off, you now have a three-dimensional plate. And then what I assume they would do, I got some inferences, they would put a wet piece of cardboard that's moldable onto this positive plate, push it down so you had all the humps and peaks and everything, let it harden, and then pick it off or peel it off. And then if they were really inventive, they would glue a map on it. And so when it's off, you now have the three-dimensional map. Well, this is a three-dimensional map of the United States. It was produced in 1878. It is one of only two known in the world. The other one is in the Library of Congress, and the second one is sitting here against us. There may be others, but first of all, I'm sure there weren't many, and there's no notation of any of them. It goes from Point Barrow in Alaska down to Cape St. Lucas in Baja, California, and it goes from Point Barrow area again across to the St. Lawrence Seaway, and it goes from the end of the St. Lawrence Seaway down to Ackland Island of the Bahamas. He was very innovative, and actually it's in 6 colors, of which I can only find 4. The brown, I'm not sure nobody mentions it, why it's colored brown. I suspect it was greenish and it oxidized, and that's why it looks brown. And I would say to Ron, keep yours covered because you don't want it to oxidize and turn brown. But that it may not have those pigments. And also, basically, when you're all welcome to feel it, all the mountains ranges are capped off in white paint, so you can see them. And you see the Appalachians, you can see the southern Trans-Canada mountain range. You see the Rockies, which then go down way down into Mexico to see the Cascades, the Sierra Nevadas. This is a unique map. There is one similar to it. There's an album in Searchworks, a Rumsey collection an album, an atlas of maps which are in 3 dimension also, but they are pressed. They're not. They're for, basically in map braille for people who are blind or poor sighted, and that was one of what's his name again? Shedler's. That was one of Shedler's ideals, was to create maps for people who had poor eyesight. It's very fragile. It's framed in the original oak of the 1880 frames, simple frames, and I didn't dare take it apart. And so instead, I encased it in a modern frame, which gives it proper support. The back is a fitted piece of wood. Shedler also made 3-dimensional maps of the fairgrounds outside of Philadelphia, of Boston and its environs, in New Hampshire White Mountains, and also California and Nevada were in the works. The interesting thing also to me is finding the original information, because many times with these maps we can't find it. For instance, Ron Faden's maps. Who was Faden's person who went around with all the instruments and graphed out the map for Faden to print or publish? The same thing with Blau. Blau was a commercial genius until his factory burnt down. Then he was banned from the city because they don't like failures at that time in Amsterdam. And by the way, John Speed, the reason he sent his plates to Holland was in 1611, England didn't have the facilities for his standards. And so he would send them to a fellow named Hondius, who would engrave the plates for him. Any event, so I was trying to find the primary source of the information in these maps. That's sort of fun because many times you can't find it. But lo and behold, Juliet, looking through her computer, found photocopy of the illustrated manual for the use of the terrestrial and celestial globes by Joseph Shedler, 1875. It was photocopied, and it's printed right on it by the Smithsonian Libraries. What is the Smithsonian Libraries in 1998? I suspect it's some branch of the LOC, the Library of Congress. But in any event, since they photocopied it, and since it was originally out of print, we got a photocopy of it. So this is the primary source of the information. Now, why is that important? It was important because, by the way, this whole article is being is published in the next Calafia, is that there was no information about what this guy was doing. And if you look through my footnotes, you find that I have map dealers. I don't like having map dealers, but I had to take what I could get. I had Ruderman had some stuff on Shedler's maps, a bunch of map dealers, and I've got them all listed in the footnotes, but it was dissatisfying. I was running out of time, so Fred printed everything up on his computer, and lo and behold, this book came in the mail, which is the primary source. Whereupon I called Fred and I says, Fred, I hate to ask you, but can we add this to it? Because this is what turns this into a keystone article, which now quotes the primary source for the whole thing, and he managed to do that. Any event, it's not beautiful, but it's unique, and you will not see it anyplace else, most likely. Enjoy. I'll pass it around so that you can basically, don't hesitate to run your finger over it, and you can actually feel the 3 dimensions.
And thank you so much. We are just at time here, so thank you all for coming.
Thank you,
It
Tom.
really was fun. Anybody else have any closing remarks or comments? Thank you all online for joining. Tim, I'm sorry we did not get to you. Here's Fred Auda.
Yeah,
Yes?
our guest here, what's your name? Tim brought a map on his knee. It's, you stand up. and
Did
look
you
at
want to share a map, Tim, on your knee?
It's upside down.
Well, what I could do is send something in the chat. There are a couple things coming up that your members might be interested in the chat, and I can put a link to them that they can sign up for. There are Zoom chats like
Thank you,
this,
guys.
and anyone can sign up for it by just clicking on the links in it. They're back on the East Coast, but you can do it 3 hours earlier. These things start at 6 p.m. on the 21st of March.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to pass the chat, the link around to everyone.
Okay.
We're breaking up here. I'm sorry, but thank you. Yeah.
You should really understand.
Yeah.
Is there a way something that reads that, so you would capture that?
You mean with a camera?
Well, I don't know. There's various ways. Sure.
It's called hill shading.
Yeah, but on his map, if you were to take.
Oh, that.
Yeah, you would
That.
capture the, like a laser scanning.
I'm going to tell you, I'm on the case of taking images of objects and putting them on this. That's a thing. I want, like, Larry has a collection of I don't know, coffee cans, and people collect stuff.
Right.
And it's a lot like a globe. And David Rumsey, the guy,
Yeah.
he takes pictures of globes as a bunch. So,
Yeah.
that's my next. So don't you think that would be similar to that? Like,
Yeah.
objects, then you could tilt it a little bit, you could see the
Right.
relief on
Somehow
it.
capture the three dimensionality.
Yeah.
Digitally, so then you can.
Right.
Like what you say, like.
I don't know how you can do it two-dimensionally, like with
Right.
my camera, without, I mean, it's gonna be scale.
So you would take an overhead shot and scan it, get all that information.
Yeah.
In something that measures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have fun? Did you have fun? Did you like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Really good. Everybody has one, right?
Right.
So visual creatures.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
So you have your mics back? You're done by now? Yes, I had to make a compromise to actually do this in the first place. But like you, all the gear.
Yeah, it's just be careful, right?
And I do two things that I found helpful. One is I'm very and
yes.
One takes footage. Writing and
yeah,
and then breaks it down to see what you did wrong.
I'll say goodbye now to everybody from Miami.
Thank you. I had a really fun time.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. How's it?
Well, that's right.
Yeah. Bingo. Thank you for coming. I need to call somebody. Okay, just a second. No problem. Thanks. Hi, are you outside? Oh. Good. Yeah.
So I mostly get that first. I was like trying to ask that kind
But when you look at the slave trade itself, it's pretty staggering. The- As it turns out, this is the end of
I have no idea.
I like all pictures. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I switched over to Mac about 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah, it's so much easier to use, I think.
And
Yeah.
someone's still on the call. Here we go. Back in my Windows mindset. There we go. It's just bothering me.
Oh, it's still video.
I have no idea.
Oh, your password.
Yeah, they're all different. Usually on my own device and it just automatically. But
Everything's so easy these days.
so, there we go. So problem with fantastic passwords. Can you can you read that off for me?
Okay. So this just
Yeah.
JM
Capital J, capital M,
plus
plus
U.
capital U, and then the squiggly parens.
Yeah, squiggly parentheses. Square parentheses, period. Regular parentheses, at. I'm sorry, regular parentheses,
At,
right? At, capital N, lowercase o, lowercase n, capital A, K,
That's FC, G, Y. If we get this right, it'll be amazing. Or we can
So that's a teacher. So. They take away from them.
No.
Perceived value.
Copy this just in case. All right, let's see if that works.
that should have been a lot of.
Okay. Well, let's get into my account. Okay. So we are in the Kelly River in Alaska. So you can see where it is.
So we're looking at this from satellite. Okay.
Yeah, well, these are the base layer here on Marble Topo maps right now.
Base layer. Like a certain aspect.
Right.
Layer.
So
Well, there were.
they were asking about, someone was asking about the nearest town, city, and that's what these blue range rings. You can't see.
25 miles east.
Right. but let's. So here you're starting to see this map. And all of these things were, you have kilometer miles and mile markers. We're delving into the tools. This is Calto. So this is this map, but the scan or the base layer of the scan topo. But we could easily use go to Google satellite imagery, right?
Really?
Yeah. No, we're just playing around. Where? Yeah.
It's actually in city. And I've always wanted to take an old map and overlay it onto.
Right.
Do that.
So is the Rumsey gallery? They have tools that allow that, where you upload your image of a map, and then you can pin certain parts of it. Like say there's a point on your map that you found, right? And then you say, aha, that also exists today, right? Like an intersection of a road or something. You pin those together, and then it will take your image and reference it to georeference it to the globe. Yeah, right on the site. I've done that a couple of times with old maps of the United States. Okay, and it worked really well. It's fun. Yeah.
Why would I want to do that there instead of Caltop?
I don't
do that on Caltop.
I've never done it on Caltop, but where you take like an image and georeference it. Maybe they have the tools to do that. I just know that the 1 or 2 times I did it, I used the Rumsey tool. But yeah, I find this stuff fascinating.
Oh, I really like the presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, and yours. I mean, I'm so enamored with this whole society. It's always nice to find people that have shared passions and interests. But I had no idea that this group existed. It's really cool. So it really makes me happy.
You know, I didn't figure out what to bring. That one, I thought, I started digging into the history behind it.
That's what makes it fascinating, right? And you have stories and history. Anyone with the shared interest, we're going to dive right in. Yeah, I found it fantastic. It was great.
It's history. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
The books that were written by Englishmen, like in the 60s and 70s, were all about Memphis.
Right. And all of a sudden 6 hours has gone by and you're still doing it. Yeah. So how often do these meetings occur? Okay. Right.
Before I got
Yeah.
Look at it, and that's kind of, you can spend like half the time.
Yeah, that's very collegial.
That was great.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this event. Immensely. I can't wait.
Your stories probably have.
Yeah, I think they're probably planes. Maybe now. But I'm looking. Okay, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I think that you.
Yeah, the Bears, that was something. How long did they have held? Well, I have videos of the whole counter. Yeah. And, I mean, they knew what they were doing. And they have, they needed to. They could easily. And actually, the first pilot eyes us in as like. Bear would have been, but, you don't need to. They decided to just hold them at bay. It's not like they were charging, but they were hungry. They smelled all the food. Oh yeah, they kept coming and they can get confused. They fire a few shots, real food, right, and then they back off. And then they loaded up the rafts. Still light out. You set up camp, now you don't know what next, bears following. And so that's what this helped me. Text me. Help. Pause the show, right? And so, with that like Twitter box up, I can see where they were. All right.
How long did it take you? 10 minutes? 15? Yeah.
And probably we had 10 minutes and had a period of half an hour back and forth. Okay, here's send them latitudes, and they had a paper copy of this and the digital. Yeah, they made it.
So they had this paper copy?
Yeah, they had a copy. Actually, they probably had that version.
So they had a leg up to begin.
Right.
Yeah. What's that? Did you turn them on?
Yeah. So when I first came on the first trip, they had a 8.5 by 11, right? Sharpie marks. We can do that fall time. Yes. So they had that now, and a couple of the guys who kind of did it. Have we load all this information into a digital version on phones. So you can with the phone, because it has GPS, you can see exactly where you are.
That was kind of important because they have a version with digital,
right?
Because otherwise they're still going off of a photocopy.
Follow. Right. Right. We have a common reference. This stuff is really great. That's been out of the rain. People pour coffee on it. It's amazing. And the whole way when I made my first map, I started looking for waterproof paper to print on. I saw this brand of waterproof paper on Amazon. Raved about, but it only came. I think the biggest was like a legal size. And so I tracked down the and what do you it's like, oh, this topo map. It's like, oh, we love topo maps. It's not our main business, but yeah, and they said, we don't advertise this, but we have a really high-end printer. Send us your file. Our rolls are up to 3 feet wide, so we can print 3 feet by how long you want. And what I can generate here is a 3x4 PDF. And so they're my go-to printers now. Yeah. And then
probably lit you up here.
Well, here you can feel the paper. Pour your coffee. It's hard to read. It's flashlight. Yeah, you can print it right on the printer. It's a game. That's what I'm
This is, you can see northeast section.
Yeah, here you can see where it is here. Switch.
Yeah. And were you asking about the town? It wasn't me. But
Yeah.
Someone, yeah, that town Constantine was right here. And it's, I've heard of it. And because I'm reading about native developers. That's kind of a lot of the villages in this part. Are there? Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, the National Park Service has their base for northern Alaska there. Yeah. Early 1700s or something. Yeah. So there's a section. Yeah. But yeah. Looking for houses selling. Yeah. In a bay, village there, completely abandoned. Couldn't figure out why it was abandoned. Never did know. Never did find out. Now we know. Smallpox, when the English started, the Europeans started spreading smallpox inadvertently, and then in the northeast, and eventually all the way out here. Made it out, wiped out that village.
Right. They were very susceptible to that. Like a lot of native populations, but especially in Alaska, for whatever reason. I know what in COVID it locked down really hard there because the Spanish in World War I did the same thing, wiped out entire villages in Alaska. For whatever genetic, evolutionary reasons, there was a very low level of resistance. So I took that seriously. So that not surprised at all about the smallpox story. Yeah.
See, sometimes people do, or a couple people across the country do studies on disease.
Yeah. It'd be a good topic.
Oh, yeah.
Disease.
I'm sure there are lots of overlays.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's Ken, right?
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you. And I'm really looking forward to the next time.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is Tom's third one.
Okay.
And second. And the first time I tuned in on Zoom, was disappointed because I wasn't there.
Right.
And, he ended at a certain point and like, we're still going, but the Zoom is gone, it's done.
Right.
And so I was like, 2 hours or 3
You
hours.
don't have this.
Yeah, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Right.
so
There's no substitutes for the others.
so this time it's coming up.
Where do you live?
I live in Hamilton. Because I've got I've already got like maybe like 15 there. A little kind of.
I think you should host the next event. I'd love to come down to.
Oh, yeah. Well, you come down and watch it. You come down and see the ones that I've got in the lot, because I'm gonna add 5 more. He's gonna do like 5 more. Very good. Put up on the site. Just that I got since, because he came down to my house.
Brought all his gear.
Yeah, either early last year or the end of. He came down and
Yeah.
took him like long time, set up, and then fortunately I had to make it for a while.
And then I think if you had one bat, it'd be worthwhile for him. So he's all set up. So he said, if you've got more, bring them up. Yeah, 5 more. I'm looking forward to it. All right, Ken. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Okay.
You're managing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Because people do.
Wouldn't actually this is reputation.
Pretty bad. Just like in San Francisco, we had the, we had the, expressway that goes right by the ferry building, you know, and sort of city got regulatory. And people are like, why did we do that? You know, it's the same with Robert, it's just crazy. And everybody happy. Taking out some of the concrete that's bringing the cities. Yeah, this was a pretty wild idea to coordinate highway and fire island. He was maniac.
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah, this is 1 mile. Like 500 feet wide.
Did you say that this was, by the way, did you say this was is a great area reach or is area reach?
It's a barrier beach.
Area reach.
Because it protects Long Island from the ocean, so it can stay. Yeah. Probably the best thing here. First, 60 feet. Sitting here in Long Island, it devastated communities because they're crashing with.
So how often?
Reached. Yeah, here.
So much for. So, that is started on operations for the spring conference, yeah, it's gonna be. Oh, yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, if people now access it and they set it up, it's just there. And Christmas Carol, I mean, it's just walking these 2 hours easily. Yeah. But I want to open up. So I'm just asking, how is this? It's non just. It's how's your air table? So. Thank you so much for coming. See, my mom, yes, street. When he was a kid, it's funny, you could do it at 16 or something like that at the same time. Because this is he was sharing what they're interested in. The other one, he said, we'll pay you, stand along the highway, if you see any cops, just, do this or whatever. Let us know, I think it's also you have to do suggestions. Yeah, and I have found, so I don't know when this last year was. This, you should like. Surprised, I just. Okay, so. So just have to give you this.
Swimming beach.
Oh, yes. I did, and I didn't remember whatever. I think I might have. Someone completely unrelated to that. So amazing.
Your house was. That's where somebody owned house. Shit on the house. What's your better? What's your better? What's your name? I'm only had, no, seriously, I'm only had 30,000 people around. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right here, 20 and you're 22. Okay.
I didn't do as much anymore. I grew my name for a long time ago. So, if you buy some- Oh. I thought I liked it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm so excited. They're going to roll. They got, they took it 2 inches. Also, go out there. Yeah.
Can they get
Because my husband wants to ski. What is your? Yeah. There's no way out. Thank you very much. Don't see you again. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Can we shoot that? Can we shoot that? We can. All right. I texted it to you once before. Do you remember that? For the. But I can tell it to you. And I'm gonna be down in 5 minutes. But it's, I can tell it to you, it's ZAG. There's no Z, like zigzag, Z, capital ZAG, 809, pound, BIKE. Yeah. I need to shoot something.
And then you have to make your child. So this is like presentation.
Yeah. Excited, it's really excited, and we can go through this together. So it's tricks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, you want to. It's not that.
Okay.
What are we looking